Honestly, I wanted to start this with a joke, but I don't have any ideas nor the motivation to make fun of this situation. Again. As we get closer towards September, this video is way too late, and by looking at the numbers of my subscribers, I don't expect this video will cause any further uproar. Still, I wanna get this out. The casting of Frank Stone, a game made by Supermassive, turned out as a slow-paced game with a more complex narrative than we expected, but overall not received well enough to be turned into even a solo survivor chapter. Yes, I already hinted that the game is slow-paced and it even has more issues. Some decisions you will make just don't matter at all, and the game is still in all of behavior's Jerome manners bugged. Every time I start the game, for some reason the loading is just rough. I haven't tried the game on release, but it for sure didn't help that the game wasn't even playable for those who bought the PC version. So I can't tell if it's a relic of the game's release date, but it also isn't good that it's still like this. Despite all of this, once I gave it a chance, I loved it. Frank Stone the game is either a beautiful homage towards DBD and its cast of original characters, or, for those who never touched DBD, a confusing mess, due to lots of the little references and Easter eggs not just being hints but straight up items from the killers. It is to say, made for everyone who loves DBD. But it's not just the small things which confuse outsiders that makes me love the game. Let's talk about the overall narrative and characters. I freaking adore the Murder Mill crew. For one simple thing, they break the trope. Usually teenagers in horror media are demised by the Friday the 13th plot. We get the adults out so we can drink, party and fuck all night until some guy in a hockey mask punishes us for our sins. We start the arc with 3 of them. Chris,
Dixie. Ms. Tammy D. Dixie.
her boyfriend Jaime, and Linda, who have a passion for filmmaking and are already taking the last scenes of Murder Mill until they get interrupted by the sheriff Sam Green, who patrols the place they filmed on every night. Due to permanent back pain caused by the serial killer Chris will soon get obsessed with, Frank Stone. When the crew got caught during filming, their camera broke, which leads them towards getting a new one from a mysterious, strange antique shop. With new members on board, and despite being threatened by the sheriff to never enter the steel mill again, it's not gonna stop those passionate young filmmakers stepping further into their demise. Much further, in 2024, a young woman named Madison has strange and terrifying nightmares of her mother getting taken by the entity in a place that looks very familiar to DBD players. She was invited by a woman named Augustine Lieber to bring with her a piece from the camera on which Murder Mill was filmed with. Once Madison entered the Gerard Manor, she wouldn't be the only one with a piece to exchange. But there's something off with the manor, and from there it's far too late. As you and the rest of the members that entered the manor discover the strange and disturbing plans Augustine prepared, which is to bring Frank Stone as an own killer into the game. The entire game leads up towards that moment. In the end, Frank enters the trials, watching the survivors in the f***ing loading screen at the campfire, and guess what? He even has a title name already. People who played the game would think that Frank would come to DBD in a matter of time, with a full chapter of course. Don't tell me you don't want Madison with her bear hat outfit as well and the steel mill for a map. You cannot deny it would go for a sick original chapter. Hell, I said it. Such an easy and already narratively fleshed out original chapter. Why not take this opportunity? Why do you give us only a cosmetic no one's gonna buy? People who played the game and liked it want a full chapter and are probably as well willing to go the extra mile and buy the Maddie Bearhead cosmetic. So you disappoint them. The game isn't broadly received as well, so no one else is gonna buy it. Plus, it doesn't help that Frank will be a cosmetic for the worst killer who already has a skin that goes really hard and makes sense with his power. Not once has Frank set up a bear trap ever. And I'm sorry, but Frank isn't all too appealing as a cosmetic. People will also just look at him and go, Who the fuck is that? Then see Naughty Bear, think he's cooler, and rather buy him instead. And maybe, just maybe, they couldn't think of a power for him. This is though very unlikely, because somehow they gave Nemesis a power that doesn't fit his character at all. People on the internet already made concepts for Frank Stone's power, and now it's my turn. I've seen him depicted by Pixelbush already as a teleport trap killer, and it's something I can see Frank as in the trials overall. I instead try on turning him into somewhat of a stealth killer. I introduce to you now the champion. Height, tall. Terror radius 32 meters, walks at 4.6 meters per second, and has a primary weapon called Champion's Cleaver. The power will be called Haunt of Cedar Hills, and comes in 3 parts. Haunt form. Frank Stone has the ability to enter the Haunt form when pressing the M2 button. In this state, he walks at 4.0 meters per second, becomes undetectable and is invisible towards survivors until he uses a basic attack or if he is being filmed. At 24 meters of range from a survivor, Frank leaves spectral trails which the survivors can see. In this state, Frank also ignores terrain. He cannot gain Bloodlust in Haunt form because he is actively using his ability, and picking up or grabbing survivors automatically puts him out of the Haunt form. Hold M2 again to leave Haunt form. I'm gonna be completely honest here. I got this idea when I looked at Sadako, and with the next part it's gonna be even more obvious. Still, his power has the unique gimmick to wander through terrain, meaning that yes, he's in the goddamn walls. To balance that out, he would walk slow. Trust me, if Spirit would do this, I probably would do Marvel Rivals videos instead now. On to the second part. Murder Mill screenings. Frank Stone starts the trial with 7 projectors across the map, playing a film on a screen. Whilst in Haunt form, holding the secondary ability button on one of the screens, Frank will transfer and appear out of them in his regular form. Haunt form is then set on a cooldown for 10 seconds. I know, we have already a bunch of killers with stationary placed teleports, but come on, Frank coming out of his screen is too cool to not be included into his kit. Then there is the one thing that needs to be in his kit as a form of counterplay, and you might already know what's coming now. Film camera. One survivor automatically starts the trial holding the film camera. The film camera can be used to knock Frank out of his ability by aiming with M2 on Frank in Haunt form. The survivor, whilst aiming the film camera, is unable to sprint. If a survivor succeeds to knock Frank out, he re-emerges towards the screen, which is the furthest away from the camera's position, and gain killer instinct on the survivor who previously held the film camera for 5 seconds. The film camera, once depleted, will automatically be recharged by the survivor holding it. During the reload, they can run again, but are unable to interact. If Frank hits the survivor holding the film camera, they immediately drop it. The film camera becomes depleted. Survivors can see the aura of the film camera across the map. Now that our beloved pale boy with nails instead of hair has left the trials, I could totally see this type of counterplay where one survivor gets to hold an item and has to commit facing the threat to be returned in form of an original killer. It would honestly be quite unpleasing if this type of gameplay was then just put on another license. That might also just go one day. There will be no perks this time, as I didn't want to focus on the concept part of this video. It's just there to prove my point that anyone invested by only a little amount could have come up with at least something, and that it just couldn't be the factor that behavior, not knowing what Frank should be doing. Just imagine if Frank Stone would have been turned into a full-on chapter. An original killer, that means casuals would likely play DBD to go on a grind for the Eerie shards. Some would ask who Frank is and where he comes from, and all of a sudden, due to Frank being his own killer, actually give his game a try. I just can't see that type of engagement once he releases as a cosmetic. So yeah, I'm gonna wrap this up now. It's just a total lack of commitment, which frustrates me as well, as the game's harsh release and overall mixed reception was enough for Behavior to break their premise that was given at the end of the game. It also is not helping that DBD right now is in its most player-unfriendly state it has ever been. Honestly, I don't want to do another rant already, as I'm not a fan of being pessimistic through and through, but currently, when bringing out unfinished licensed content with an unplanned map that is a total fiasco becomes more of a priority after we already had the biggest growth in DBD history, Springtrap, over the game even working properly. Jeez. Then I might consider doing another one.